There are many faces of humanity, and we have many ideas and thoughts. In the 21st century, our social media technology is robbing us of reasoned debate and critical thinking. More and more we see that we are at war with ourselves. Mythologies is a space where we can consider different ideas without becoming fractious. Welcome to Mythologies by Jack Adams. Welcome to the freedom to disagree respectfully. Introducing a conversation with Simon Roper. Simon Roper is an archaeologist with a fascinating YouTube channel about the old languages of England. In the following conversation, we're going to consider the mythology behind the names of the days of the week.
I think that's a good lead into the concept of names that originally were clearly meaningful but don't necessarily mean anything to most people nowadays, even though I think most people probably recognise that they do come from older names. Most people probably know that they come from the names of gods, aside from Mornunday is Monday, and that's Moon Day, and then Sunnunday is Sunday, which is clear enough. But one thing I haven't looked into much is the relationship between those days of the week that are named after gods, or rather that are named after Anglo-Saxon gods. So that's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and their Latin equivalents, because in a lot of Romance languages, they're named. Those days are also named after gods, but what were kind of the equivalent Roman gods, and I think there's a lot of that kind of thing. Is people either early Germanic people taking the concepts of those gods and trying to map their own pre-existing god concepts onto them, or in other cases you find Latinate cultures doing the opposite. So sometimes in old texts where old texts that are written in Latin, you'll find a Latin writing author, whether they're a classical Latin speaker or whether it's just a later person who speaks English but writes in Latin, translating almost the names of Germanic gods into Latin. I think the same thing happened with gods from Celtic speaking cultures as well, where they would kind of find the closest equivalent to the god in Latin. So it's hard to say whether the concept of naming the days of the week after gods is an internal native development, or whether it's an outside influence thing, because clearly, not necessarily clearly, but it seems as though these days of the week were named after the gods in Proto-Germanic, based on the fact that their names are cognates in all the modern Germanic languages, apart from Wednesday, which in German is just called midweek, Mittwoch.
Mittwoch, yes.
Yeah, but yeah, it's one of those interesting ones where you're not quite sure whether it was Latin influence or not.
Well, one of the reasons I thought this was a good area for us to do a discussion is because of the accessibility of it, because it's immediately easy for people to look at what we're saying here and understand that we take for granted the names of the days of the week, but
Absolutely,
we don't understand that within these words are contained histories and mythologies, because we've lost contact with them. What you're saying about the whether or not it's a native action or whether or not it's a more corporate action of cultures, I think my opinion would be that we have to remember that it's not until you get to monotheist mythology, where there's one god and only one god, that then you get a concretization of metaphors into this is the only way we're going to express something.
That's true, yeah.
So that in the times of the Saxons naming their days, of the other people name, and certainly with the Romans, and the Romans really understood it really well, is that when they took over another country, they didn't try to take over the gods. What they did is they effectively had a twinning system.
Yeah,
you call him this, we call him Mars.
Yeah.
It's the same god, because they understood the danger of trying to take away people's gods.
Yeah.
That you're more likely to ferment revolution by doing that than taxing them.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah.
You know, so well, I was looking at invasion. I was looking at the invasion of Australia by white Europeans, and how we invade and take over resources, and we take over the logistics and the resource base of a landscape. That's historically what the British Empire has done. You know, hence why we formed companies to take over India and America. But when I was thinking about the Romans, I mean, the Romans never invaded in that sense. They invaded as tax collectors.
Yeah.
Or, like they were early expansionist tax collectors more than they were actually empire builders.
Yeah.
And so the idea as to whether or not Moonday or Tuesday is a Saxon god, or whether it had an equivalent in the Latin language, I think probably absolutely yes, because for them it was quite natural to interchange these ideas of gods.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because I suppose it might not occur to people at the time that because their belief in gods was so fundamental to their understanding of everything else in the world, I suppose, why would it occur to them these people have different gods if they're adhering to a polytheistic system? You know, it's to them it might look very much just like these are the same people, or rather the same figures, just being worshipped in a culturally different way, because it's part of the real world, in the same way as there's a translation for table and there's a translation for grass, there's a translation for the names of the gods.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I mean, should we just go through, for people that aren't familiar, we can just go through the days of the week, because you've said something interesting that I'll pull out. So Monday, Moonday, yep.
Yeah.
Tuesday,
Tuesday, yeah.
That's the god of war, isn't it? What do we know about Tuesday?
It's hard to, at least for the Scandinavian equivalent to these gods, which we know a lot more about because they were written a lot more about. It's hard to necessarily say they were the god of anything in particular. I think that's more of a thing that was kind of imposed on them in the 19th century, rather, because people wanted to find equivalences between them and the Roman gods. So they have, in some cases, you can kind of connect things more. So, for instance, Thunor, which is the equivalent of Thor, the name actually means thunder, and it gives us the modern word thunder. So the connection to thunder there and lightning is more clear. But a lot of the time, it seems to be more personality based. So they had roles and personalities, but he is associated with war a lot, I think.
Yeah. So it's almost, I mean, not wanting to use the dreadful word psychology, but it's almost like a psychological interpretation, isn't it? That people, the way that they psychologically construct their relationship with the gods is completely different, as you say, to the Victorian concept of how gods, and especially with that sort of embedded Christianity going on, that they're actually looking at it in a very pejorative sense as paganism, as opposed to a very cultural sense as this is part of how people looked at the world. So we got Tuesday, we got Wednesday, which is Woden's Day or Odin's Day, is it?
Yeah, that's right. Woden's
and Woden
Day
is what we would call our sort of father god figure, is it?
Yeah, that's how he's normally, at least that's how he's normally portrayed in the Scandinavian sources, which are more comprehensive. Yeah. Yeah,
and then Thursday, which is Thor's Day.
Yeah.
Okay, and then Friday, which is Freya, is it?
Freya, yeah.
You say it so much better.
No, it's all right.
Freya, and who's Freya then?
It's cognated with Frigg in Old Norse, because you have this regular change where if there's a g sound around I think it was g in Proto-Germanic, and if that comes around a front vowel like e, e, a, then that becomes yeah. So that's cognate with Frigg in Old Norse, and that's a female god. So a lot of people have connected that with ideas of love and beauty, just because of connections to Aphrodite and things like that. And I think that might be Venus might be the basis for that name in the Latin languages. So that's how that connection's made, I think.
Okay, so that brings us to Saturday, all right, which is the
Yeah.
one that I want to sort of, because you didn't include Saturday as a Saxon name.
No, because it's not. I'm not sure, and I've never been able to find a good recent source, although there are probably some older interpretations of why they've taken Saturn, which is a Roman god, and they've not replaced it with a native god. I don't know if there's anything in particular about Saturn.
Well, in the way of things, I'm sure now you're really going to resonate with what I'm about to say. All right. It's last night I was looking through some books on place names, and I've got a marvellous book. It's Traces in History in the Place Names by Flavel Edmonds, 1871. And let's see, there it is. There's the little
that's
beauty.
a nice little book.
Well, I collect. You can probably see on my shelves. I collect old books.
Yeah.
And last night I found him writing about the days of the week. All right, but I was in bed. I was falling asleep, and I fell asleep, and the book closed. And I thought, I've got to get that out today. And can I damn well find it anywhere? Which is a really woeful position. But as I said, you'll probably resonate. It's one of those situations where you think, I must do that. You don't do it. And then later you go, I should have done that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the point is that in that, he claimed that Saturday was a Saxon name. And he had a Saxon word that he was associating with it. Now I'm just going to have to work hard and dig that out for you and send it to you, and we'll check it. But I was surprised because I thought Saturday was Saturn.
That's what I thought. Although it's possible, yeah.
Could that be just an old Victorian thing? Does Flavel Williams saw something different that might be interesting?
But quite possibly. I don't know. It's one of those things you assume, isn't it? Yeah, that's very interesting. I think there are a lot of names of Anglo-Saxon gods that are kind of potential gods, or either because they're kind of mentioned in certain texts, but then nobody goes into much detail about them, but they're cognate with Scandinavian characters who are gods, or something similar, or they're mentioned in a religious context, not a religious context in the modern sense, but in a text that's clearly harking back to something pre-Christian.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that small discussion on the days of the week. Coming up next, we're going to be talking about English place names, and after that we'll be looking at mythologization of place names, mythology and mental illness, mythology and religion, post-Roman languages in Britain, and power and words. Welcome to A Conversation with Simon Roper. There are many faces of humanity, and we have many ideas and thoughts. In the 21st century, our social media technology is robbing us of reasoned debate and critical thinking. More and more we see that we are at war with ourselves. Mythologies is a space where we can consider different ideas without becoming fractious. Welcome to Mythologies by Jack Adams. Welcome to the freedom to disagree respectfully.